Let's see here. The creator, Matt, asks a very pertinent question. He says, I'm assuming Matt is a he. Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the amount of materials that you have? If so, how do you overcome that? Or do you use the endless possibilities as inspiration for your next project? As a maker, I have many moments of brain farts due to the amounts of bits and bobs that I collect. Well, collecting bits and bobs, yeah, is absolutely a central occupation for me, obviously. And I save them and I store them and I archive them and I catalog them, all in the interest of keeping them accessible for when I need them. All that being said, I am currently in a state of feeling completely overwhelmed by how much shit I have. I've run out of room in this building. Uh, this shop gets smaller. I think I'm going to get rid of the pool table so that I can actually put a work table in and a place I can have meetings around, because I don't have that in this space right now. I have to take some of these costumes off the mannequins. As much as I love looking at them, I have to get them into storage so that they're not sitting here taking up floor space. Um, and it feels like an even bigger, yeah. I'm currently feeling totally overwhelmed. Like I walk into my shop and I'm like, oh, I walk into the display area of the cave, and that's where I'm like, oh, I keep the shop clean enough so that I don't feel that here. That is really important to me, because when this place is all filthy and like overloaded and not quite functional, and that place also is, that's when I feel super destabilized. And actually, I end up feeling quite claustrophobic about the world. Um, so my mitigating strategies for collecting stuff is multifold. One is, like I said, I work really hard to catalog stuff. I work really hard to archive it and to put things in places where I will not lose them. I still lose stuff all the time. But a few years ago, I implemented a storage technique that has served me so well. And it is this. Let us say that I pick up an object like this and I think, oh, I've got to put this back, but it's the only one I have and I don't have another one. Where should I store it? This is the moment when you're about to put that thing in a place you'll never see it again, or you'll see it in like 5 years when you finally open that cabinet. The question I ask myself after wondering where it should go and before putting it somewhere is, wait a minute, if I didn't have it, but I had put it somewhere in the shop, where would I look for it right now? And then I put it there. I don't overthink that problem. That has just, your first thought is your best thought in that regard, because later on, when you wonder where it is, your brain's going to very likely go to the exact same place. Don't get too clever about storage. Every problem I've ever had about losing stuff is because I got clever about storage. Oh, I'll tell you one that just happened. I was just doing some machining, and I needed to determine precisely how big this hole was. And I recently added gauge pins to my shop's infrastructure, and these are basically from 50 thousandths all the way up to 750 thousandths. I have a pin of ground steel that is every dimension by 1,000. So 50 thousandths, 51 thousandths, 52 thousandths, 53 thousandths, all the way up to 659, 749,000, 750 thousandths, right? And it's like 5 bins of these pins, each one 1,000th bigger than the next. And that might seem kind of nutty, but when you want to determine the exact size of a hole, there is no better way. You just sit there and oh, that one fits. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Oh, that one fits. And you do it until it stops fitting. And then the one that you just put in before, that's the size of your hole. And I pulled out the 703 thousandths pin, and then the doorbell rang. And I have not seen that pin for weeks. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if I put it on a table and it rolled off that table and rolled under something, but I've looked everywhere and I cannot find it. I have ordered another one. I'm not that, yeah. It is a constant battle, storing your stuff. Oh, the other thing that I do, like, I definitely appreciate the philosophy that Marie Kondo has brought into the world of like looking at something and saying, is this really important to me? Her terminology, I believe, is, does this spark joy? Which is a fine metric to ask yourself about anything. And one of the things that happens in here is sometimes I collect something because I really want it. Sometimes I've collected something because it was a great deal and I know how great a deal it was. And I just like, oh yeah, no, I should just have that. And then the next time someone comes and they're like, oh my God, a Goonies doubloon. And the delight that I get in saying, oh, you can actually have this one because I have two. I picked up that one for, a real good deal a screaming deal a few years ago. And I did it for just this moment. So I love throwing stuff out. I love getting rid of stuff. I love having garage sales, but most of all, I love finding, the intersection of somebody's enthusiasm and the things that I have in my collection and bringing those two things together. That is a deep joy. And that comes from a specific childhood memory. As I've said many times, my father was a painter and artist. He had a lot of friends who were artists. So I grew up going to lots of different types of art studios and lots of different creators, labs and studios and painting rooms and houses and shops. And I was exposed to this from the earliest age. And I remember visiting a friend of my dad's, and he had an African mask on the wall. And it was one of those masks that was made from cut tin from oil cans. It was a very specific style of African art. It had marbles, clear marbles for the eyeballs. It was really, really beautiful. And I don't think I was older than 8. But I remember being super compelled by this mask. And I remember being like, God, it is so cool. Look at these marbles for eyes. And I did what any 8-year-old would do when you want to know how possible it might be to obtain something like this. I said, where do you get one of these? As if at 8, he'd say like, oh, I got it at a thrift store in Manhattan. I'll be like, oh, my good man, thank you for that. Next time I'm in Manhattan, I'll drop by that same thrift store. I did. So I said, where do you get this? And I don't remember what he said, but I do remember about half an hour later, my dad and I were driving. We got in the car. We're driving away from the guy's house. And we're at the end of his driveway when we hear him yelling. He's running after us. And he comes over to my side of the car and he gives me the mask. And that blew my mind. I knew that he was doing it because he could tell that I had become really enamored of it, and that was good enough for passing it on to me, to be its steward for a while. I am no longer that mask's steward. I don't know where it is. It might be somewhere in my mom's storage. I'm not sure. But that is much less important than what I got from that interaction, which was the generosity of spirit of seeing someone's enthusiasm and seeing that you could do something to feed that, and then doing that. That's really, really lovely. That stuck with me my whole life, clearly. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support us even further, you can by becoming a tested member. Details are, of course, below, but it includes all sorts of perks, and we're building them all the time. You get advanced word and behind-the-scenes photos of some of our projects. Questions, you get to ask direct questions during my live streams, and we have some members-only videos, including the Adam real-time series of unbroken, unedited shots of me working here in the shop. They are weirdly meditative. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you on the next one.